Welcome to the Father Figure Formula. Create moments that matter.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Father Figure Formula Fireside Chat. And today we have a very special guest, also in the father space. And I think it's important to have these conversations. And I know obviously sometimes I take some very personal things out of these meetings and interviews, but I'm a big kind of 1% kind of daily. If I can take one thing away from each conversation I have, then I'm better, and everybody else who hears this is better for it. But I have a feeling we're going to come out with a few more than just one pieces of information here from Mr. Tyler McAdams, otherwise known as the Inspiring Father. So welcome to this interview. I really appreciate you and your time. Take a couple minutes to please tell us about yourself, Tyler.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. This is exciting. I enjoy getting on different podcasts and different things and having good conversations. So I'm in the same boat as you, trying to get better 1% every day. So always growing. Growth mindset is a big thing. Self-development is a big thing for me. But yeah, man, I'm obviously in the fatherhood space. I saw that you friended me not too long ago and saw that you're trying to get a groove with the podcast, which is awesome. But a little bit about me. I'm a father of 4. I'm a single father of 4. And I have kind of launched my channel, my page as for many different reasons, but I've always been known, or I've been told that, I have an itch for just fatherhood in general, because I've showed up for my kids and always been present with them. So I took it as an inspiration for me to why not reach out to other men and kind of showcase that and help other men do the same. So that's been my goal, is to reach them and impact them. My goal is always to impact one person a day at minimum in some form or fashion. I think it's super powerful that we all need that little kick in the motion. Well, now it's awesome that you could do it on social media, right? You could do it where, words matter. Words do matter. When you read things, they impact you. They give you an edge. They give you a guide. They give you something to kind of look forward to. And so for me to be able to do that through content of video and, different things of different reels that I post and different messages that I post, it gives me some good clarity of things that I know I'm doing something, positive for the world. Right. And it gives me great feeling that, I'm hopefully helping somebody out there in that world today. But, I started the page about 2 years ago now, almost. And just been consistent with it. I've just been consistent with the message. My goal is to kind of get up to as many men, reach as many people as possible, not just men, but women too, parents, because I think we all need that guidance. We need that courage to continue going, because fatherhood is tough. Fatherhood is not always easy, or parenthood is not easy, right? So we all need that jump. We all need that knowing somebody's there, or knowing somebody's going through the similar things, right? We all need that understanding and different experiences and different things. And obviously I've been through a lot the past 4 or 5 years, getting divorced. I was married for 10 years, known her for pretty much half my life. And then I found another woman that I ended up having another child with. And she's a 2-year-old. She was in the NICU like your kiddos were, as well. And so she was in the NICU for 3 months, and she's got a central line in her as well. So that's been a journey in itself. But as far as my fatherhood, I've always still showed up, right? I've still tried to be present in their lives as best I can, and I still want to see them. I get my kids, half the time, and it's great. I spend as much time as I possibly can with them. So my experience is, not everybody goes that. I'm not like where it's a married coupled family where you have the kids, and it's a different role. But I still make sure I show up, and it's a no excuses thing, right? You still don't have excuses. You still find a way and that's kind of the message I try to preach is, you could be going through all kinds of things in life, but there should be still no excuses for you not to show up as a father.
Love that.
That's where I'm at. Yeah.
Awesome, Tyler. Yeah. So like before, I guess, the Inspiring Father existed, before the post, the mission, the audience, like, who are you as a dad kind of in the moments that no one saw, that was just kind of personal to you and your family?
I've always been the one that just, I'm always, for my kid, my firstborn, my son, who's 13 now, I was always in the yard, in the front yard, playing ball, playing baseball, playing basketball, all those things. That's just something that I just naturally did. I always enjoyed having, being that leader for children, right? Even when I didn't have kids. I've always was always the older one that was playing with the younger kids and trying to show them new things or do things with them and include them, because sometimes when you're at like family gatherings or kids in general, like the adults do their own thing and the kids do their own thing. But I've always felt like the kids feel excluded. You know what I mean? They feel excluded. And I don't know where that came from for me. But I've always felt that way where the kids feel excluded from the party itself, right? And the adults want the kids to do the same thing or their own thing. And I always liked including them because it's, as a kid, you remember those things. You remember those moments when you play with the adults and you play with it just made you feel good, gave you confidence. And so for me, it's as a father, I've translated that to my own kids where I'm always trying to be engaged with them as much as possible. And now it's different. It's been a challenge. It's been a journey for me, let's say as a single father, because I've had more responsibility, right? And that's not always easy. So I've had to manage that and learn how to, and I'm still learning every day, but I've had to learn a little things to kind of still stay engaged. I go on walks with my kids. I go to the park. I go to the gym with them. I try to do all these things, go hiking. I still fit those things in, but it's not always easy to be as present with them sometimes. And I think a lot of things where I think a lot of divorce rates are high right now, right? The divorce rates are pretty high. So I think a lot of parents can relate to that. It's not always easy being a single parent. And, I think beforehand, I've always just been somebody that loves just spending time with kids, man. That's kind of where I was in the beginning and before this page too, before I created this brand.
That's great. And I would say the one theme I would see it like maybe those kind of holiday dinners is like there was always the kids table, right? Like everybody's always
yeah.
So that segregation, that separation there probably was a catalyst for that. But I mean, being a seat at the big table, isn't that what kind of everybody wants, right?
And that's true. I mean, even as adults, right? We all want a seat at the big table. That's 100% accurate. Like we even now, like you always want to. Most of us want to level up, right? Majority of the world, the goal is to get to a level that you dream of, right? And as a kid, like you're just all about dreams and imagination and play and all that other things. You want to know. You don't know what the future holds. You don't care. You just know that you have a family, hopefully, that you can, rally around and enjoy their presence. But that's kind of where I take that. I think that's a really good way to think about, relatability and in the sense of us as adults. We all want to get a seat at the big table for sure.
Definitely. So like, every kind of father has a moment where something maybe feels off, before things can say fall apart, right? And there's little kind of clues and maybe tips and things that not everybody kind of pays attention to. So obviously having gone through some stuff yourself, like what was maybe that quiet tension moment for you where you're like, something doesn't feel right and I kind of maybe need to start making some changes?
Now you talk about as far as relatability for just being a father in general, or how you kind of relate in that question?
Yeah, I mean, just a conversation here that I have with another gentleman is like the communication thing, right? You feel like the communication is maybe off in that relationship somewhere in the family, whether with significant other or with the kids. You just kind of there's something not right. So maybe where does that usually stem from if you were to narrow it down to an area?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. The communication side is definitely a challenge, right? I think we all, especially as men, we do have challenges of communicating best. We try to keep things on our chest and inside and on our shoulders where we don't let it bother us, and we don't let it out either sometimes. And I think that's always a struggle for men. I think the change for me has been where I've learned to understand that I have to let my feelings out. I have to let myself speak my mind, whether that's through a therapy, whether that's through a coach, whether that's through talking to friends and family and just different acquaintances. I think you have to talk to people. You can't leave it all in. And I think that's because communication is a big struggle for us and as a society, I think, not just in men's side, but as a society, I think we all struggle to communicate, and we just, you learn it by, you act out. I relate to this. You act out by behaviors, right? And I was just reading this, like as a child, sometimes you don't know how to communicate. So you just act out with a different behavior. And so, you end up creating more harm by your behavior when you just wish you could have communicated you just wanted to learn how to communicate the right way. And so communication is a big thing where, you you always have to continue learning how to communicate. Yes, we learn how to speak language, right? But we don't know how to say the right things. Instead of saying, I saw this a clip where you don't want to tell your child that you're proud of them, because that's more serotonin, right? That's more serotonin level for them. You want to make sure they're proud of themselves. So you say, do you feel proud of yourself, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, the communication is different. It's a different level of style communication. You know what I mean? So that is a big factor. I think I've learned as I've got to learn how to communicate better, not only to my kids, but to my other people all around me. I'm continuing to grow and learn how to better communicate. I think that's a really positive thing for us as humans to continue doing.
Yeah, I really do think that communication is a skill, right? And I think maybe there's a lot of people who are a little scared of maybe getting the communication wrong, so they don't communicate at all, which
Sure.
we'll talk about here shortly. Like,
fear is a big thing.
Yeah, ego has kind of come up a few times in other conversations as well. Being afraid of not being loved after making a potential comment or communicating, right? So I think there's a lot of variables there, but yeah, communication definitely backbone of any relationship, I can say, right?
Well, yeah, and I think we all want to be validated, right? We all want to have validation in some form or fashion. We all want to feel like we're seen, right? And I think that's another factor and driven into this is, like, everybody wants to feel like everybody wants a ton of followers on social media. Everybody wants to feel like, oh, they saw my post. Everybody wants to feel like, oh, my opinion matters, right? My opinion will make a difference. And, it's not always the case. And so it creates a down cycle to where you're just struggling mentally and you just don't understand it. And you're just like, why can't somebody just pay attention to me? And, obviously that's another challenge it stems from communication. It stems from just a lot of, like you said, ego. I think that it all ties in together in some way, shape or form. But yeah, I would say those are the things that we have to work on.
Yeah. And then why do you think so many fathers work just endlessly on like the providing element, but kind of resist like the self-assessment, the looking from within, like what, and take a look at who they're becoming?
Because they weren't taught to deep think like that. That you got to realize, like, think about this. Think about how it used to start. And I think about it like this: fatherhood, men would just leave the household and just go work all day, right? So yeah, you role model that, right? You role model that, but not all the fathers would have they don't really have the good relationships with their children. So, and nowadays more fathers are trying to be more present with their children, right? It's a different generation now. And I love that. I think more fathers, we need more of that. I think more fathers have to have that relationship and bond with their children more and more, because, for example, sons, they don't know what manhood is. My father, age 8, and I had a stepfather, but I wasn't the most close to him, right? I was more close to my mom. But my biological father left me at the age of 8, so I didn't have that guidance, and I didn't even have good relationship even beforehand. Like, it's not like he taught me all these things, or I don't remember anything he taught me, but that's something that I've taken into heart, like, as a father myself, is like, I won't do that to my kids. I'm going to break that generation cycle. And I think that you have to ask yourself as a man, like, hey, do you want to break that cycle or not? Do you want it to continue going down to the next generation, or do you want to stop it right now and realize I can do better. I can do better right now. And you can. And men just think, oh, well, I'm here just to provide. No, that's not all you're here for. You're here a lot more. Like, fathers, and I've said this on, I think I've said this on another podcast. I think fathers are the most important relationship you can have, because I think we provide a lot more than just providing. I think we give a lot more. We give safety, we give security, we give just that overall protection for that confidence for our daughters and for our sons. I think we can give confidence to them. Mothers are fantastic. I'm not shortening their relationship with them. I think that, trust me, I love my mom. I know I need her in my life for sure, but I just think that the level of fathers that we provide, the confidence, the whole aura as a father and what we stand for, we are the model. We are the role model. Most kids look up to the father side. And I think it's super important for us to remember that, as a man, that we take that leadership role no matter what. Even if you don't want it, you end up still being that leader.
That's a good point. And I think when we look at being a leader, like what kind of like internal standards does somebody have to be on to be like a leader in like a father position? Like what are some areas you think that really set a standard for potentially exceptional leadership as a father?
I think it's decisions. You want to be a good decisive person. You don't want to just be, oh, well, what is it that you want to do, right? Or what do you want to do? Like, you want to be decisive in who you are. You want to have routine. I think that's another leadership. You want to have a good routine. Showcase your routine. Talk about your routine to your kids. Like, I read every morning. I take the dog out on a walk every morning. I walk. I exercise. I do those types of things because at the end of the day, I know it's setting my kids up to see, okay, my dad does these things. And maybe they don't do it right this moment all the time. They're not consistent because they're still learning what they want to do. But in the future, as they become adults, like, I know that's something that they're going to take to, like, oh, my dad did this all the time. Like, he was always out and walking. He was always out exercising. He didn't stop. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't sitting on the couch just watching TV all day. You know what I mean? So, do the things that a leader should do. And that is not only financially provide, but that you should provide within the home and keeping your body and taking care of your health, because health is wealth, right? We all say that health is wealth. And if you're not going to showcase that to your kids as a leader, then you're not a leader. You're not going to be a leader. You're just somebody that had kids. What do you have kids for? You know what I mean? It's just like, if you want to be a kid, if you want to be a father, be a father. If you don't, then don't try to pretend to be a father. Actually, you got to realize what it takes. There's definitely a level of fatherhood that you got to be present with your children in a different way, in many different ways. Presence is key.
Yeah, and then maybe kind of vibe off that for a second. Like, I really feel like presence is like one part of that, but also like the intention that you're leading with that presence is super important, right? Making sure you are kind of being aware and very specific with those interactions at that time, right? Because they do say that showing up is half the battle for sure, and I'd say the other half of that is the intention, right?
Right. I mean, and here's the thing with fathers, and it doesn't take a lot to be a leader, right? I mean, it's not like you're having to spend 6 hours a day with your children all the time, because let's be real, like, that's unrealistic, right? But if you spend, and I've talked about this on my lives with Russ from Fathers with Daughters, that it 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes a day of intentional time will change their whole day in a lot of ways. Like, even if it's just, I read to my 6-year-old as much as I can, because when she goes to bed, and she goes to bed so fast because she likes it's that comfort factor, right? And it's like our kids need just playtime for us for 15, 20 minutes to just get that rough play, that dance, whatever the silliness, because they remember those moments. They bring them up all the time. My kids bring up all the time that I was doing things randomly with them. They remember the moments, and I don't remember them all the time, because it's like, okay, oh yeah, I remember that now. But they remember them, right? And it's like the presence is half the battle, but it's actual intentional presence is the major thing, is that you have to remember. And it doesn't take much, because at the end of the day, if you're homeschooling, you're going to have some time with them, obviously. But if you're sending them to school, you only have 4 or 5 hours a day maximum with them, right? And like, that's not a lot. So it's not like you have to put a ton of effort to be present intentionally with them. You just have to do things and show them different things. And one time, it's just do something every day with them for 10 to 30 minutes a day. That's all it takes.
So when a dad kind of says to you, I don't have time, or I don't have the time, what do you kind of hear underneath that sentence that's maybe not trending in the right direction?
He doesn't have his priorities straight. He doesn't have a routine. He doesn't have, he's lost in a lot of ways. I think he's lost. I think he feels lost. I think he doesn't know what is important to him. He hasn't deeply asked himself those questions. What's important? What is my why? When I started this brand, I was in the shower actually just thinking, okay, what am I good at? What I enjoy doing, what am I good at? And I wrote down in my shower, because I have a shower notes little thing that I write in. And I was like, I'm good at being a father. And so I was like, all right, well, how could I do something with that? what do I like to do? I was in a transitional period where I wanted to do something more impactful. And, I think you just have to ask yourself, what do you have skills in? What do you want? What do you want your life to look like? How do you want it to look like? If you have kids in a family, you're blessed. You're blessed. Like, you got to remember that. And you got to remember how grateful you got to be grateful for what you have in your life. You can't just, people that are going day by day and just going through the motions, like, that's not life, man. That is not living. Like, you're just a pawn in the sense of life right now. And that's not how you want to live life. And I know that's not how you want to live life, because if you go deeper with them, if you get in depth with them, there's a little kid inside that's wants more than that. You know what I mean? They just haven't reached down deep enough, and that's what I'd say. They're just lost.
Yeah, and you mentioned priorities, like obviously values, right? And I think, and even time management. I see time management is a big one, like to kind of break down those priorities and values in like a daily routine. I think is super powerful. So like, I know obviously in my experience, I've had to say like no to things that maybe when you were younger or maybe at the cusp of a family life, you didn't really have to think about that, right? So like, what kind of helped you maybe say no to things that maybe you feel like you want to do, but you can't?
Well, I mean, I've struggled with this myself, and I'll be personally, accountable for that. I've struggled with time management because I do have a hard time saying no, especially to my kids. Like, I don't like. I want to make sure that I give them everything. But, as I've learned through relationships, challenges that I've had and things like that, where I try to give everybody everything I can, but I've also known that I know what I have to fill my cup first, in the sense of like to be able to fill their cups, right? But at the end of the day, you have to have your priorities straight with what you think is important. If your kids are important to you, which they should be, because you got to realize the impact you're making on their lives, every single day, whether it's small or big, whether it's a simple phrase that you tell them, simple meaning, whatever it is, whatever wisdom you share with them, you got to realize the impact you're making. So, I think we have to remember we have to fill our cups first, but you have to give them a little bit of it as well, if that makes any sense.
100%. And I guess like, you were kind of talking about routines and kind of like, I guess rituals in some way. So what's one tool in your personal toolbox that'll kind of get you back into alignment of like being a father, like no matter how chaotic things get?
Obviously I get some time to myself with the kids being a single father. You get a little time, right? And that definitely doesn't, I'm not saying it doesn't help, because it does. You especially if you use it wisely, use it intentionally, use it with purpose. But I would say when you're with the kids and you have your kids, sometimes you need alignment with, listen to something inspirational. Motion is a big thing, getting a workout. I think going on a walk, just doing something with motion is a big thing to stay aligned with your stress levels and things like that, because things happen on a daily basis that you can't control. You don't know what tomorrow brings. And sometimes you get chaotic, something happens at work, something happens where if you're in my situation, an ex says something that you don't like and it throws you off your whole day. But you have to find a way to express that to your children in a positive way too. You can't you have to take a breath, you have to breathe, you have to take it and not react to them. They didn't cause the issue, right? And if they do cause the issue, you have to understand their side of things, where their behaviors are a culprit of probably your energy, your tone. So I think you just have to, as far as routine, if you don't get your routine going for a day, obviously you might be thrown off, but find little ways to incorporate something different. Learning something new is a positive thing. Talking to somebody about what you want to do in life, or grow it and growth mindset, things like that gets you in a different thing. Surround yourself with better people. There's so many different things that you can do. Go on a drive. Driving helps me. I usually like driving sometimes just to kind of think, so you got to you always have to be adaptive and be open-minded with different things, is what I'd say. If you don't have that routine straight to the bone, which is not going to happen all the time, especially with kids, you got to find different ways to keep yourself at a high level as best you can.
Yeah, and I mean, you were kind of mentioning before about like breaking cycles, right? And one trait I'm really trying to instill in my kids, and just in business in general, is like accountability, right? That's such that
Yes.
word I think comes to the forefront so often, and I see a lack of accountability in so many different areas, right? And I think when you start to maybe pair that up with something in like discipline, right? Because breaking those cycles and being consistent, you got to have a level of discipline, right? So
Yes.
when we say discipline in fatherhood, like how does that actually matter? You know, because I'm sure like discipline can be a very general term, but where does the real discipline fall for you? I guess that'll really kind of make some moments that matter.
Um, as far as discipline and routine, or are you talking about discipline in
Being a
just
father,
discipline of being a father? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think discipline is a tough thing. I mean, obviously, discipline, you got to be a dependable person, right? You got to show that you can be trustworthy in your own self, right? You got to actually, if you're gonna be disciplined in your actions, and um, you got to show accountability that, hey, and sometimes we mess up. Let me phrase this. There's a lot of times we mess up as fathers, right? My kids call me out on saying things. Well, you said this, you said it this way. And I'm like, you're right. I did. And I take accountability that I didn't do the thing I said, right? You have to be open to taking that constructive criticism as a father. And I think that's a tough thing for us as fathers. And that's part of the accountability side, is we don't like to feel criticized. We don't like to feel, because it feels like you are disrespected, right? You feel like, oh, your kid's calling you out. And, I know we talked about, so to be dependable or disciplined, you want to be open to constructive criticism. Like sometimes you're not going to be disciplined for your child, and maybe you think that you should be doing a certain way or saying a certain thing to them all the time, but you're not going to be, where am I going to go with this? You just have to be open to yourself, is what I'd say to that. You just have to be open to take action. You have to take action on things, and don't be afraid to take action. Don't live in fear, because your kids are, you don't want your kids to live in fear. You don't want your kids to live in fear, and then they won't learn how to be disciplined in different ways either, because they're scared to do something. They don't want to, they see you messed up. Well, if you mess up, then you're never going to get structure. You know what I mean? You got to learn to keep going. Is what I'd say to that.
yeah, the consistency. And I know that sometimes like I see as men, like from a level of like consistency, it's got to be long term. It's got to be something that's sustaining, something balancing, right? And what I do find in some folks that I've talked to and coached over time, the big difference is where they can keep going consistently. So why do you think a lot of men, who maybe start strong, eventually fade over time? Like what usually causes kind of that drop off or lack of consistency?
I think it's emotional discipline. I think that the men struggle, and there's times I struggle with emotional discipline, because I think men go into depression. They go into, they feel they failed, right? They feel failure. They feel like they're not good enough. And, I think that's where you struggle to be consistent with a certain level, right? And, you have to realize that you're going to fail going in. You're going to fail at certain things. You're going to learn. The only way to learn is by failure, right? That's the motto, right? The only way you're going to learn and grow as a person is if you fail. And I try to tell my kids this. I said, look, I'm okay. I'm glad you failed. I'm grateful that you failed, because I think you learned something, right? And then you just learn off that. You have to teach your kids the same thing that you want to be taught. Like, okay, well, you tried it. It didn't work. Okay, well, now you just have to keep trying new things. Like this brand, for example, this platform that I've built, right? There's times I've been wanting to give up on it, because I'm like, well, it's not really, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, right? What is the way I'm going to do with it? But I know in my heart, like, there's an impact that I can make in the world with this platform that you're building, right? Or even my kids, like, they may not be at the level that maybe you want them to be as a father. Like, a lot of fathers out there, and I say that and this is part of the consistency part. A lot of fathers want their sons to be better than them, or take the same path they took if they're into sports or whatever, and be better than them. And if they don't do it, then in their mind they feel like they're a failure, right? And they put that pressure on their child. And to me, that's the worst thing you can do. Don't put that kind of pressure on your child. Yes, you want to be there to guide them and to push them into new levels, but don't make it sound like they're a failure. You know what I mean? Don't phrase it like they're a failure. You're disappointed in them and that because they didn't do exactly what you thought they should do or what they wanted to do, you wanted them to do. You have to guide them. And that's through consistent action of positive reinforcements and making them feel like they can do it in a guided way, if that makes any sense. So consistency is hard. It's never, no, that's why there's only 1% of people that are super successful, right? Because they're the most consistent people at whatever niche they're doing or whatever work they're doing. They're the most consistent.
Yeah, and I think that consistency really builds up a level of like authority, right? And I think being a father is super important to hold that authority, even to your kids. Like I really feel like with my son, I almost have to earn his respect on a regular basis.
Sure.
Where maybe my daughter is like, "Oh, you're daddy. You're just everything at that point," right? So it's authority. I think is a really interesting element to that. So I mean, like fathers who consistently. Sorry, you got something to add on that?
I was gonna say I would say you have to earn. If I don't mind me adding this, you have to earn every day. You should be earning what you want in a relationship with not only your kids, your spouse, your exes, whatever you want in your life and what visual you have. You should want to earn that every day. It shouldn't be a one-time deal where you expect it every time. You have to go out and earn the way you want to be treated. That's what I'd say about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Consistently,
for sure. And I mean, here's maybe an opposite side. So what do fathers kind of consistently underestimate about maybe their approaches at authority, or maybe even like the weight of their words? How do they really underestimate their words? I mean, even to themselves or into other relationships? Maybe two parts to that.
Well, I think words are the most powerful thing. I think they sit the most. I mean, yes, actions are powerful too, but words hurt. Words can hurt you, or they can lift you, right? I think that's something we forget as people sometimes. Is like some people say some really evil stuff out there. They put some evil words into other people's heads, and when you think psychologically, how much of an impact that can make on a person, it may not hurt that day because maybe in the moment it doesn't really hurt, but you'll think about it a few days later, like, man, why did they say that? That really, and you start thinking about it. Like, and our kids they're sponges. They soak in every word you think, and you don't realize it as a father, how much they soak in the words more than the actions sometimes, because you're like, what? I said that? And they're like, yeah, you said this. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, but they really soak in because their information, their brain is growing and they hear everything you say, whether it's positive or negative. And us as fathers, we got to remember that what you say is really going to make the impact of what they are going to be and what they think of themselves. If you tell them that they are horrible and they're not good enough, then they're going to be living in fear. They're going to have to overcome that trauma. If you tell them all the positive things, that you're great, you're loved, you're appreciated, then they're going to eventually feel that as they grow older, like, hey, I'm a person that's enough. I'm enough in this world and I can make an impact in a grateful way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Two primal fears I think every person on this planet has is I won't be enough or I won't be loved. So that really just feeds into, I think, everybody how they're pre-wired already, right?
Yeah. And some days, look, everybody has different living circumstances. You can't preach to everybody like, hey, you got to just live with love and gratitude and all these great things, because everybody lives in a different world. I'm grateful the way I live and what I have in my life. I'm blessed. I'm grateful for it. Now I've gone through my own challenges, obviously, where I felt that I haven't been enough sometimes too. I mean, there's been times where you could have all the things you ever wanted and still not feel enough, right? You hear the richest people in the world that they have all the money in the world they have, but they don't feel happy. Why is that? Well, because they don't love themselves. They don't know how to love themselves and be grateful for what they have. They just were on a mission to grow, but they didn't realize what else they had with them. So, it's a balancing act that you have to have on a daily basis. You have to have a balancing act, and you have to realize what you have what you have next to you, who you're growing, you should be grateful that you have children to love. You should be grateful that you have children to be able to teach and want them to be better than you are as a person. Yeah, that should be something that you should be reminded, and you have to remind yourself every day, like, man, I am blessed to have this situation in my hand, because not a lot of people are. That, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that don't have that ability.
100%. 100%. So let's maybe kind of talk about like stress management for a second here. So like when you kind of feel like stress starting to leak in for you personally, and even maybe around the family, like how do you personally like recalibrate?
Yeah, man. I try to talk it out. I'd really try to talk it out. I try to talk it out with other people. I have people close in my circle that I talk to. That helps me a lot. Conversations like this help, even, to be honest with you. Like, it's just there's days that everybody has a level of stress. I think everybody has a level of fear every single day you go into. There's not a day you don't feel that. So, obviously I've talked about the exercise and the walking. Motion is a positive thing. Like, get up and do motion. Don't just sit down and expect it to go away. You have to work it out. You have to try to get it out of your brain. You have to move your body, stretch, whatever it is, meditate. Reading is a good thing to do. Listening to podcasts. Those are types of things that I think you have to understand. Like, you have to get perspective from other people sometimes to say, I'm okay. Because you've seen that they're going through similar things, or they've gone through challenges. You're not the only one. You're not the only person going through stress. Everybody deals with stress. And now how you manage that is you have to have, we talk about routine. We talk about different things where you have to have some level of what you want to do. You have to do the thing. You have to check things off the list that you want to do on a daily basis. If you're not getting things done, if you're not taking action on a list that you made, or if you're not being accountable to yourself, as it goes back to the accountability thing, if you're not being accountable to yourself, that's where the stress level kicks in, because you should be doing the things that you told yourself you're going to do, and you're not doing them. That's what's creating the stress. And it ain't the kids. It's not the children that are making you the stress. It's you. You're creating the stress because you're not completing what you want to do. You're being lazy. You're being, you're just wanting attention. It's an ego thing, whatever it is. You are creating the stress, and some people have to be accountable to that and reminded that, hey, you're creating your life right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that self-assessment is just such a big part of it, right? Like bringing it within. What can I do to improve, change, and that accountability is really at the forefront. So let's maybe now switch now to. So we've kind of coined this term, the father mark, which is essentially like legacy, the lasting impact that you're leaving on your children. Now, this could be positive or negative, right? So some people have left negative father marks on their kids, and some have left positive father marks, and maybe you've already come across some of these, but like, let's maybe kind of talk about when you're not in the room, what do you hope your kids say now? And then I'll ask that a question again, maybe 20 years down the road. So what do you think, if we were to ask your kids right now about you as a father, what do you think they'd say?
I think they'd say that I'm a fun dad, fun father that loves them very much. I think they'd say that. I think that they'd say that I'm goofy, I'm silly, I can be all the things, and then I could also, that I play with them, I give them attention. I think that they could say that with solidarity for sure. Now when they get older, I hope I can instill more wisdom in them. And I've always told my kids, like, hey, take what I've learned and learn, that my goal is to teach you guys different things so you don't make the same mistakes that I've made, right? And then you're just knowing that I'm present. I guess I want them to know that I was a present father at the end of the day. That I was a father that showed up at every sporting event that they were at all their school stuff. Like, I want to be known as that father that actually was there for them, and whenever they needed me, no matter what. So that's my goal. I want them to know, and that I'm still there. It doesn't stop at 18. I know it doesn't stop when they're out of the house or whenever they move out, right? It doesn't stop there. It continues to build that. We're just building the foundation for the future, right? Just because all these people, I feel like a lot of men think, oh, well, that when they're 18, they can do their own thing. No, it doesn't stop. That's when the real work begins, because if you have a good relationship with your kids when they're young and they want to hang out with you when you're older, then that's the beauty of life, right? And then you get to see the grandkids and all that. That's the goal, right? That's what we want. That's my goal. Like, I want to have, the grandchildren being able to hang out with the grandfather, right? Type of deal. That's my goal, and have that relationship with my kids, like that. I'm I matter to them, and I've made an impact on their lives in one positive way. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, definitely positive father mark, I guess you could say, right? So let's maybe kind of talk to so I always kind of ask this question to people I interview, and I think it's an important one, right? So for the father listening who really feels behind, like what's the most important truth he needs to hear? Like what can somebody do right now that feels like maybe they're failing?
You got to let the past go. You got to let the past go and just start today. You got to let it go because if you end up sitting there with, oh, well, I did this and this and I failed at this, I wasn't showing presence, I wasn't present enough, and you seep into that, your kids they know that. They know you messed up. They know that. They're not dumb. But if you can be consistently showing up for them, even especially when they least expect it, right? It's not, and I think Russ and I talk about this too, as on another live, like kind of correlates to this. Don't give them gifts or presents to think that's showing up, right? I think that's another thing where us as fathers, like, oh, we'll make up to it by buying them something. You got to actually show up and be present as best you can for them. And it's not always perfect, but be intentional. Start 10 minutes a day, build it up every day to be present with them, showing up. You're not a failure just because you made past mistakes, but that also goes to open communication and accountability for yourself. You have to be willing to be accountable for your child, to yourself, and express that to your child. Like, look, I made a mistake. I'm sorry I'm not showing up. I've been going through a lot of stuff. And, I'm always communicating to my kids, like, look, I didn't show up the best I should have today. And I try to tell them, like, I try to communicate, like, maybe I didn't do the best. I said something that I shouldn't have said. Maybe sometimes we do that, but it doesn't mean you're a failure as a father. You just have to start today and then keep working at it.
So, yeah. And as of start today, so maybe like what's one simple kind of meaningful action a father can take within the next 24 hours? Like what's one simple thing meaningful that they can do today to really kind of move forward?
I mean, it depends on the situation, right? It depends on the situation of their life and their, but communication is the start point. Start communicating with them. Try to find a way to communicate them, whether it's writing a note and letting them read it if they're old enough, or just trying to, say, I want to sit down and for 5 minutes and chat with you about what's going on in my world, and how do I be, and willingly want to say, how can I better support you as a father? Willingly say, what could I do better? And wanting to learn from their perspective how it is. Now, if they're young and little kids, obviously just play with them, right? Just sit down on the floor with them, play blocks or play whatever they love to do, find what they love to do and be relatable to them. That's the thing. Like us as fathers, like we try to force them into what we love, but you got to remember, you want them to, they're on the exploration side of things. Do what they like to do. Do something they love to do. Find something they enjoy, that you can kind of learn from them. Because at the end of the day, if they're older, they like to learn. They like to teach things they like to do. They're always like, Dad, look at what I can do. Look what I can do. Look, and they like to show off too. So it's like, just be relatable to them in some way. It doesn't have to be great. You don't have to be perfect at it, but just be vulnerable. Vulnerable is something that you want to be with them. Be vulnerable.
Love that. So I don't know if that's answering my last question that I have here for you, but I want you to finish this sentence. A father becomes inspiring the moment he
shows up. Shows up. When you're present, that is when you're inspiring, because one little moment of you showing up can change their whole perspective of you as a father. If you're showing up with them consistently on a consistent basis, you're going to be able to create a memory of yourself as a father that'll last a lifetime for them, because you want them, if you want to leave a legacy, and a good legacy, right? As a father, you just have to show up, be present, and as best you can. You got priorities. I get it. You got to provide. We all got to provide. We got to support. We got to emotionally support. We wear a lot of hats as leaders, right? We wear a lot of hats as leaders, but if you're not showing presence to them and showing them and enjoying the moments, the little moments with them, you're never going to leave a legacy that's worthwhile. You're going to it's going to go by the wayside, and they're going to just never going to remember what you brought to the table. But if you want to leave a legacy that's impactful, just show up for them, show up and do what they like to do, show up for their events, their school events, take them out on a date here and there. You do those things, do those little meaningful things that really make it. Take them to the movies. So if I have my son by myself, I'll try to take him to a movie, or we'll go to the gym and work out together, do whatever it is. Like, find those times, schedule time every week that you can find a one-on-one moment with your kids. Because sometimes I know it gets hard when you have multiple kids. You're like, oh, how do I do this? But you got to schedule the time with them on your calendar. Find a time, like just like you're supposed to do with your spouse, right? You want to find that time with your spouse too. If you don't find that time with your spouse too, your relationship is not going to be great, because that lack of communication is going to be wider gap. And then boom, that's what happens. Right. And, that is a challenge. You always have to work at it. And we talked about earlier, you have to earn all this. You have to earn the respect from your kids. You have to earn the respect from your spouse. You have to earn the respect of yourself as a man every single day. You have to attack it every single day.
Amazing. And I think to kind of round out this call, I want to take an opportunity for you to kind of give yourself a little plug here about the Inspiring Father. So let's maybe take a moment to do that.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm on mostly on Instagram right now. I'm really focused on Instagram. I have TikTok as Inspiring Father, and then the Facebook as well as Inspiring Father. But majority of my work is produced in Instagram. I've really focused on that. I'll probably get into YouTube. I do have podcasts as well that I'm going to setting here in the new year. And then I'm going to start doing some more mastermind programs and things like that with different fathers this coming year to build that community base a little bit deeper, with people that have kind of grown with me on this page and this platform. So yeah, that's kind of the things I'm working on, and that's where people can find me is kind of that space is. I'm mostly on Instagram, but yeah, that's where I produce my content for sure.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, from one father to another, I really appreciate you and your time here. I know time is very, very valuable. And I told you that we'd have more than one takeaway. I think there was a lot of takeaways.
I hope so, man. I hope so. I hope I brought something to the table. And
I try to mix up some of the questions. And obviously, there's times you're answering my questions before I even ask them. So that's where the real value lies, is you're spinning a lot of helpful information here, Tyler. So again, I really appreciate you and your time and what you're doing over at the Inspiring Father. And I hope we can kind of keep in touch and keep this going into the new year. All the best to you, sir.
Yeah, brother. And I hope I can have you on mine. I'd love to learn a little bit more deeper about you too. I'd love to have you on my podcast this coming year. Let's make that happen, because 100%. I think people need to know and understand a little bit more about what you're doing in your space. And I love that you're joining the fatherhood space, because I think we need more of us, right? We need more than just a few of us. We need a lot of us to kind of build an army of putting the message out there that fathers really do matter.
100%. A movement, we can say, right? Community movement,
yes.
all at the same time. So, okay.
100%,
awesome.
Man. And I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for having me on, and look forward to talking with you more.